Hi, welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to list my top 10 favourite Beatles tunes. The lads. Can you see them? Are they there in the picture? Now this is quite a daunting task because, 200 plus songs. How do you choose 10? And I've often shied away or veered away from what I call greatest hits compilations because I never find that my favourites are in a list of an artist's greatest hits. What constitutes a greatest hits? Is it a song that's popular with the masses? Is it a song that's given revenue to the record companies? And they'll throw out another greatest hits because it'll make more money for them and the artist, of course. Now, I tend not to buy greatest hits because I already have all the albums of an artist that I like. So why would I then go and buy a greatest hits album? Anyway, that's by the by. This is my greatest hits. At least it's not a double album, it's just 10 songs. Now, I tend to catch, when I can, usually in the car, BBC Radio 4's Desert Island Discs, and they'll have a celebrity on, and the celebrity will discuss songs that they like or have influenced them or have an importance in their life. And I thought, well, I'm not a celebrity, I'll never get there in that vein that I'll be invited onto the show. So Tudor, what's your number 10? Well, in fact, they only do 8 on that show. So I thought I would put together my top 10, and these are songs that evoke memories, evoke emotions, based on every time I hear them, something happens. It's like, oh yeah, it's that song. And I would have these songs on a playlist constantly, one after the other. So let's start at number 10. Now, in at number 10 is this.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Now, why? Quiet, Paul, quiet. Why this song? Now, their hit was Love Me Do, wasn't it? And this was the first song on their debut album for Please Please Me. And I thought to myself, it just rocks along. It's got all the influences that the Beatles had from their time as, teenagers, and then going over to the was it the Star Club in Hamburg? And they would play all the numbers from their favourite artists of the time, Fats Domino, Chuck Berry, all the old stock rock and roll tunes. And so we get something like this thrown out as the very first. Can you imagine? You get a vinyl record. It's the Beatles. I'm putting it on. You move the needle onto the vinyl, and that kicks off. Well, she was just 17. Written by McCartney, and a little contribution from Lennon. I think the line was, she was just 17, she was no beauty queen. And he offered it up to Lennon, who said, what? You can't put that in there. So they changed it. You know what I mean? Wink, wink. But nobody knew what he meant. And the bass riff. So imaginative, but actually Paul says he got that off a Chuck Berry song. I'm Talking About You was the bass riff, and Paul lifted that and inserted it in here, and people said no, I've not heard that riff before, so okay, whatever. But I've actually used it in my own composition. I've used that exact riff.
So won't you sing to me, baby? Sing all my blues away. Sing my blues away. Come on and sing to me, baby. Sing all my blues away. Sing my blues away. Gave me some sweet, sweet loving, but she blew me away.
I love playing stuff like that. Walking bass. Oh. So yeah, in at number 10, I saw her standing there. In at number 9, off the Abbey Road album. Now, the reason I like this is it's a real departure from the rock and roll. And So I can imagine myself sitting on a sunny beach just listening to this, the waves rolling in. And I like particularly the vocal arrangement. Now let's move this to the vocal arrangement. Now this predates 10cc's I'm Not in Love by 6 years. And I think the 10cc production had all four of the guys, Eric, Graham, Lol and Kevin, singing 16 times, and then they would layer those 16 elements to produce that lush harmony that sort of meander through I'm Not in Love. But the Beatles, let's just at this point, is that not 10cc taking that? There's nothing new in music, right? You know, everything that you hear has been done before. But that's the kind of the departure, because the Beatles were such innovators and pioneers, and they didn't follow anybody else. They created their own thing. Art for art's sake, perhaps. You know, they just went out and I'm going to do it. And if you don't like it, tough luck. But actually we loved it. So yeah, Sun King, Louis XIV, Sun King. It was a working title, Here Comes the Sun King. But of course George had Here Comes the Sun, and so they just shortened it to Sun King. I like this song. At number 8, we have a George composition off the White Album. I first heard the White Album 1981, so I was 18, and I learnt to play the guitar when I was 18. I got my Beatles complete book, and so everything that I was learning and picking was kind of the 3-chord tricks, She Loves You, you know, just anything that was easy to learn. And then someone gave me the White Album to listen to, kind of lent it to me. And up till then it was Please Please Me, A Hard Day's Night, with the Beatles, Beatles for Sale, and Help. And that's kind of what I want to say reared on, but actually that's what I considered to be the Beatles. So I get the White Album given to me, and I'm like, what's this? Piggies? It didn't seem to fit in the genre of what I had been listening to, you know, in my kind of early musical ears stage in my life. And this song really didn't factor. I ended up picking up a few favourites off the White Album. Since then, of course, I know them all, and it's a brilliant album. But I always thought that Savoy Truffle had a reference to the Savoy Hotel, this place here. And I couldn't work out, well, what's a Savoy Truffle? And I thought perhaps it was something off the menu from the high-class restaurant. Spoiler alert, if you didn't know what the song was actually about, I'm going to tell you now. The British have always had a fascination for confectionery, way back till the Victorian era. And so companies would churn out different styles of confection, boiled sweets, jellied sweets, chocolates, anything sugary. And in the 60s, there was a company called Macintosh, Rowntree Macintosh, and they produced sort of wine gums and jelly tots, that kind of stuff for the kids. But for the discerning adult, you would get a selection box, or, you know, boxes of chocolates. You think Dairy Milk, Black Magic, that kind of stuff. But Rowntree Macintosh, or Macintosh, produced something called Good News. There's a picture here. And Eric Clapton was round at George's house, and they obviously had a box of Good News. One. These are nice. These are nice. Now, Eric had a sweet tooth, and George composed this song for him. And it's great because he lifts all... Because I'm thinking, what is it? Sweet tangerine or cool tangerine, a Montélimar. What's a Montélimar? You know, coffee cream with a pineapple heart. Well, this is what he's talking about. Did they give him enough credit? It was all about Paul and John, wasn't it, really? Writing all these fabulous tunes and having minimal contribution from the other two. But you know what? Having watched the Get Back documentary, And seeing George in that new light that I've seen him in, you know, such a humble guy, just laid back, you know, go with the flow. Hey, if you want to do it that way, I'll do it that way, you know. And he wrote some really good tunes, and this is one of them. So this is coming with me on my desert island. That's number 8. Also off the White Album, a little McCartney number, and this is it. Now, yes, it's written about a dog, so we know McCartney can write songs about anything. You know, the story of Dustin Hoffman. Oh, McCartney, you can write anything. I'll tell you what, the famous artist Pablo Picasso, he died. Oh, I'll write a song. A grand old painter, he died last night. You know, that's the guy's mind. Anyway, Martha, my dear, why does it conjure up some evocative feelings and emotions for me? Well, I grew up in Scotland as a kid from 6 till 13, and I attended what in the UK was called the Boys Brigade. It's a little like the Boy Scout movement, but it's kind of church orientated. So you do Sunday school and you'd have your midweek meeting and you do your sports and all that kind of stuff, but you would do marches on a Sunday. Not every Sunday, but on some Sundays you'd jump in a minibus, go off to a town, and Salvation Army would be playing. And that's what this song does for me, because I hear the brass of those Salvation Army bands, you know, Onward Christian Shoulders, Onward Christian Soldiers, and whatever sort of hymns they would play. And brass bands have been part of the psyche of the English culture from way back when, sort of a distinct part of communities up in the north, and it would bring the people together. Now, going back to my previous comment about the White Album and it sounding foreign to me, I actually wondered when I listened to it, and it subsequently in years gone by, where I've known that the White Album was an angsty time for the Beatles, you know, and there was a lot of conflict. How much of the album was a solo project? How much of it was just Paul, you know? And how much of it does he just play all the instruments and the drums? Because we know that he played the drums on Back in the USSR because Ringo had gone off for a couple of weeks holiday with family. But on Martha, My Dear, everything is credited, apart from the brass and the strings, although he did arrange them, probably with the help of George Martin. All the instruments are Paul. The drums, the bass, the guitar, the double-tracked vocals, the hand claps. It's just all Paul. He was destined to go on and make some solo albums, don't you think? I love this song. It's quirkiness and uplifting. That works for me. In at number 6, John Lennon, and one of his early compositions. And this guitar. I love this song. John wrote this before he formed the Beatles. So, you know, was it 1962? Gave it to Billy J. Kramer and the Dakotas, and he was unhappy or dissatisfied with the version that they produced and the fact that they had it as a B-side on their A-side song or A-side single. And he's like, ah. So he did it himself for the Beatles. And it's got 2 unique elements in this song that I really enjoy. First of all, it's only John singing, which to me is like, well, hang on a minute. The Beatles is all about multi-part harmony with all the instruments, but it's just John. The second thing, cowbell.
I gotta have more cowbell.
We need more cowbell. So before Blue Oyster Cult brought out Don't Fear the Reaper, let me show you.
I gotta have more cowbell.
I could do a whole video of just me miming to the songs and enjoying them. They're great. I love that. And actually taking it back to their roots and their beginning, you know, so from Sun King, I saw her standing there all the way to Sun King, all the way back to I Call Your Name. Oh, such a good song. Who could not have Strawberry Fields in their top 10? Maybe you couldn't. but it was a real departure from, you know, sort of their previous music, the hits, and it was a venture into creativity. I love the mellotron, and the little Morse codey bits in there. And then at the end, and even McCartney doing that sort of lead guitar at the end. I've seen clips of, or photographs of John composing this, and I've heard snippets of, you know, just the acoustic guitar, certainly on the anthology, which I actually haven't listened to or seen the footage. I know of it, and maybe it was sort of, can I actually face sitting through all of that? Maybe I should, because I endured the Get Back documentary, so nearly 8 hours of it. Or was it more? 9 hours? 3 hours each? That was an epic adventure. I must do it again sometime. But yeah, Strawberry Fields, I love that it's just an expression of the creativity that they've got sort of exploding out from themselves. In at number 4 is another George song, but this song takes us back to a time, almost their roots as of skiffle, you know. Now we saw this song taking root in the Get Back documentaries, and this is on the Let It Be album. He had written the song, he knew where he wanted to go, but he actually brought it to the band, and they all put their little elements into it. They don't get a writing credit for the input that they put in. It's clearly a George song, but this is an example of going back to their heritage, the fact that they could all just knuckle down and play together and not be told, no, can you do that? No, I want you to do this. Oh, you're not playing that wrong. They actually just play. And there's footage, isn't there, of, for McCartney, playing his piano. I love that bit. And John on the lap pedal steel guitar. And is it that he doesn't actually know how to play this instrument? He clearly does. But, you know, if you gave it into the hands of a country and western performer, they would slide it gently. And here's John kind of going, oh, I think it's here, I think it's here, I think it's... But the quirkiness of that lends itself to the beauty of the song.
Go, Johnny, go.
Go, Johnny, go. Oh, I love this for the fact that it's simple. It's a hark back to their earlier days. You know, yeah, that's coming in at number 4. Now, I'm going to say that because I've been to Westmoreland and I've been where they performed in the videos, and I've done my Magical Mystery Tour bus trip myself, this song is all the more poignant to me. I think in this song we see the first introduction of John's nasally vocals. Now, I am aware that and I've read this, that he wasn't ever happy with his own vocals, and so he'd always insist that they would be double tracked. But in this song, we start hearing that very nasally, I am he as you are he. That's the only way I can do it.
I am he as you are he.
When I first heard him singing this, having heard Dizzy Miss Lizzie, You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, Help, all in a normal timbre of a vocal, and then you hear this and you think, whoa, what are you doing, John? What are you singing like that for? And it's strange to my ears. And over the years, I've become accustomed to it, and it's a distinct part of his vocal offering, if you like. It's unique to him. It's fabulous. I am he as you are he. And it's a little like, I wonder how he discovered it. How did he realise that actually I can sing in this other little voice that I've got? And I'm reminded of a documentary I watched with Barry Gibb, you know, Barry of the Bee Gees, with his way up there falsetto. And they were doing Night on Broadway, or Nights on Broadway, 1975, on their main course album. And I think the producer, Aris Mardin, said, we need someone to scream. And Barry said, well, I'll go out and try it. And he'd gone out, blaming it all, blame it all on the Nights of Broadway. I'm blaming it on the Nights of Broadway. I can't do falsetto. But that cemented the falsetto for Barry Gibb. And I'm wondering, is this the song that John decided, you know what, I can sing that. Wells are flowing out. Maybe it was Lucy in the Sky, actually.
I'm crying.
But I'll put this on my Desert Island disc list because of its quirkiness. Because it doesn't... Yes, it follows a formula of pop songs, verse, verse, chorus, verse, verse, chorus. But there's enough... I want to say ambiguity, but there's enough weirdness going on that will always prick up your ears. You think, oh, I don't think I've ever heard that before. I am he as you are he. So that's my number 3. I'm torn. Let's see what number 2 is. This is my number 2. And sadly, and this is why I'm torn, it could have been number 1. I've always said this was my number 1 Beatles song, but actually, I think the one that I've chosen for my number 1 for the Desert Island stands out as its own number 1. Now, this song, here we go.
Penny Lane, there is a barber showing photographs.
Again, kind of quirky because it's ding, 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 simple piano melody and riff, but you've got the brass in there, and you've got... It just takes me again back to my youth of growing up and brass bands. Now, what's magical about this is McCartney takes us on a journey of all his memories, and it's a little like a fairy story, something from Lewis Carroll, although John Lennon was the Lewis Carroll fan. It's evocative because it reveals in a solid storyline all the plot, although he does sing about it's a lovely sunny day, but then the banker rushes in from the pouring rain. So like juxtapositions. I might need a cup of tea. Hang on a sec. Terrible Tudors. But like Strawberry Fields, which was the number 1, and on the flip side of the double A was Penny Lane, so it never got its true recognition as a number 1 hit on its own, it's relegated to my number 2. McCartney had tried numerous instruments for the solo, and he was watching a Bach concerto, Brandenburg Concerto number 2 on the television, and he heard the piccolo trumpet. So George Martin, because of his connections, knew that David Mason was the piccolo trumpet player, invited him in to play on the session, and said, and David Mason, well, I'll let you hear what he said.
So David, Paul McCartney sees you playing the piccolo trumpet on telly. What happens then?
Well, I received a phone call the next day from George Martin. And George said, well, are you free on tomorrow? And can you come along to Abbey Road? And I said, yes. And we arranged it. And just as an afterthought, I said, oh, who's this for? He said, oh, it's the Beatles. So I went along the next night, and in walked these 4. And I thought they were in fancy dress. So I said, have you just come off a film set? Oh, no, mate, we always dress like this. And then Paul sat down at the piano, and George sat down with a piece of manuscript paper. And Paul played a bit on the piano and said, "Diddle-um, diddle-um, can you play that?" And I tried, and he said, "Oh, a bit higher," or, like that. And we went on like that for about 3 hours.
That trumpet and the bass line, such a beautiful song. So that's my number 2. What's my number 1? What would your number 1 be? I'd be interested to find out what your top 10 would be. Anyway, let's have a look at my number 1. Number 1 is a masterpiece with only 14 words and almost 8 minutes long, from my favourite Beatles album, probably because it just explored all of their talents, is this. It's worthy of my number one. Plus I get, like, you know, in the early days of hits that could only be 3 minutes long or less, I'd potentially have got 3 songs in one. Oh, it's bluesy, it's deep, it's probably the precursor to heavy rock. Is it a pop song? Yeah. Is it also a hit? You wouldn't get that as a, you know, released as a single, as a pop song. And admittedly, Something and Here Comes the Sun were the songs that were released. Come Together is perfect, but this song
I want you.
is bluesy. And that intro where that guitar plays, and I think it's probably George, but it might be Paul and it might be John, because they were all proficient. It sounds Clapton-esque to me, and I have a funny feeling that George, although he was George Harrison, and on the Get Back videos he was encouraged to be George Harrison, don't be Eric Clapton, I think he was probably influenced by the sounds of Cream and Eric and all of the stuff that was coming out at the late 60s, maybe even Hendrix to some degree. But yeah, this song is my number one on my top 10 list, and I particularly like, I think it's about 2 minutes 40 in, when this smooth transition into a kind of Santana-esque, love that, I want you, and then you get 3 minutes of the riff with the Moog synthesizer giving us white noise, lifting and lifting and lifting. You have to remember that when they did A Day in the Life, and they let that single chord, boom, and they let it just resonate and resonate and resonate. I'm not even going to say how long, what the time was. It just went on and on. I want you. 29 was John. 1940, 50, 60, 70, 29. He was the eldest, wasn't he? No, George was the oldest. I don't know these things. I just go and do documentaries about where they went. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. That's my 10 songs that I'm going to take to my desert island. They're not a list of pop songs in terms of, you know, I could do a list of, here are my 10 love songs by the Beatles. Here are my 10 songs of rocker tunes. Here's my one song off each of their albums, favourite song. This is just a random selection, and I had to choose. I mean, I've discarded, crazily, Obladi Oblada, which I love, again for the memories that it gives to me. I've discarded Come Together, Hey Jude, Let It Be, Get Back, Help, You've Got to Hide Your Love Away. It could go on and on and on. So many songs. Well, thanks for watching, bearing with. Drop me a comment if you've got some favourite songs. I'd be interested to see what they are. I will see you in another video. Bye for now.